Imagine finding a ship in the middle of the ocean. The sails are set. The food is still warm on the table, and the captain's log is open. But not a single soul is on board. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no storm damage, just silence. This is the true story of the Mary Celeste, the greatest maritime mystery in human history. For over 150 years, experts, sailors, and scientists have tried to answer one simple question: where did they go? Today, we are stepping onto the ghost ship to uncover a secret that was never meant to be found. December 4th, 1872. The crew of the Dei Gratia spotted a vessel drifting aimlessly near the Azores. It was the Mary Celeste. When they boarded the ship, what they found sent chills down their spines. The ship was in perfect condition. There was plenty of water and food for 6 months. The crew's personal belongings, their pipes, and even their boots were still in their cabins. It looked like every single person, the captain, his wife, his young daughter, and 7 crew members had simply evaporated into thin air. The only thing missing was the lifeboat. But why would an experienced captain abandon a perfectly safe ship in the middle of the sea? Theories began to swirl like a dark whirlpool. Was it a mutiny? Did the crew kill the captain and flee? But there was no sign of violence. Was it a sea monster, the legendary Kraken? Or perhaps a sudden waterspout that sucked everyone off the deck? But the most terrifying theory involves the cargo. The ship was carrying 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. Some believe that a small leak caused a fear of a massive explosion, forcing everyone into the lifeboat in a panic. But if they were in a lifeboat, why were they never found? In the vast, cold Atlantic, a small boat is like a grain of sand. They vanished, leaving behind a ship that refused to sink. To this day, the Mary Celeste remains the ultimate ghost story of the sea. Was it a natural disaster, or did they encounter something out there that defies logic? In part 2, we are going to look at the captain's secret journal that was found years later, and the chilling sightings of a ghost ship that looks exactly like the Mary Celeste. What do you think happened? Mutiny? Madness? Or something supernatural? Drop your theory in the comments. And if you want to know what the FBI found when they reopened this cold case, subscribe and stay tuned for the next chapter. The Mary Celeste was found drifting in the Atlantic like a floating tomb. No blood, no struggle, and no people. We've explored the discovery, but now we must go deeper. We must step into the cabins where time stood still. Why did an experienced captain, Benjamin Briggs, abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship? Why did he leave behind his wealth, his food, and his pride? Some say they fled from a fire that didn't exist. Others whisper about a madness that took them one by one. But as we look at the evidence found in the lower decks, the story takes a turn into the truly impossible. If you think you know what happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste, think again. Because the ocean doesn't just take bodies, it takes memories. The cabin of secrets. Voice, very slow pacing, letting each word sink in. Sound, faint sound of a child's music box. When the boarding party from the Dei Gratia stepped into the captain's cabin, they expected to find signs of a pirate raid. Instead, they found a domestic scene that was terrifyingly normal. The captain's bed was made. His wife's sewing machine sat on the table, a half-finished garment still under the needle. On the floor, their daughter's toys were scattered as if she had just been playing with them seconds before. There were no splashes of wine, no overturned chairs. Everything was in its right place, except the people. But then, they found the captain's logbook. The last entry was dated November 25th, 1872. It was a simple, routine note about the weather and the ship's position. There was no mention of a storm, no mention of a leak, no mention of fear, but historians have noticed something strange about the handwriting in those final lines. Compared to the rest of the book, the last few words were written with a heavy, trembling hand. It was as if Captain Briggs was struggling to maintain control of his own fingers. Was he sick? Or was something in the room with him, watching him write his final words? In the crew's quarters, the mystery deepened. Pipes were found filled with tobacco, ready to be lit. Boots were lined up by the bunks. For a sailor in 1872, his boots and his tobacco were his most prized possessions. You don't leave those behind unless you are running for your life, or unless you were taken so fast you didn't have time to blink. Then, we have the cargo, 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. When the investigators counted them, 9 barrels were empty. This led to the most logical theory. The alcohol had leaked, creating toxic fumes. Terrified of a massive explosion, the captain ordered everyone into the small lifeboat, intending to tow it behind the ship until the air cleared. But if that was the case, why was there no smell of alcohol when the boarding party arrived? And why was the tow rope found cut, not untied, but cut with a sharp blade? If they were in that lifeboat, they were just feet away from their ship. The Mary Celeste was sailing steady. Why didn't they just climb back on? This is where the seaquake theory comes in. Some experts believe a massive underwater earthquake struck directly beneath the ship. It wouldn't sink a large vessel like the Mary Celeste, but it would create a terrifying acoustic frequency, infrasound. This frequency is known to trigger pure, unadulterated panic in the human brain. It causes hallucinations, a feeling of being watched, and an overwhelming urge to run. Did the crew, driven mad by a sound they couldn't hear, jump into the sea to escape a ghost that wasn't there? Or perhaps it was something more ancient. The Azores, where the ship was found, sit directly above the mid-Atlantic ridge. For centuries, sailors have reported phantom lights in these waters. Could the Mary Celeste have sailed into a pocket of time, or an atmospheric phenomenon that we still don't understand? The lifeboat was never found. Not a single piece of driftwood, not a single shoe. 10 people vanished from the face of the earth, leaving behind a ship that refused to tell their story. For decades, the world believed that no one escaped the Mary Celeste. 10 souls vanished into the Atlantic fog, leaving behind a ship that looked as if they had just stepped away for a second. But what if I told you that the silence was finally broken? Years after the tragedy, a man emerged from the shadows, claiming to be the sole survivor of that cursed voyage. His name was Abel Fosdyk, and the story he told was so bizarre, so terrifying, that it made the ghost stories look like fairy tales. Was he a liar seeking fame, or was he a man haunted by a truth the world wasn't ready to hear? Today, we sit across from a ghost. We explore the testimony of the man who claimed to see the ocean swallow his friends alive. Brace yourselves, because the mystery of the Mary Celeste is about to get much, much darker. Abel Fosdyk was not on the official crew list of the Mary Celeste. According to his story, he was a secret passenger, a close friend of Captain Briggs who wanted to travel in private. For years, he kept his mouth shut, living in fear of the sea. But on his deathbed, he handed a collection of papers to his daughter, a diary that detailed the final moments of the Mary Celeste. According to Fosdyk, the tragedy didn't start with a storm or a leak. It started with an argument, a petty human disagreement. He claimed that Captain Briggs was obsessed with the ship's speed. One afternoon, to prove the strength of the vessel, the captain ordered a small wooden platform to be built over the side of the ship, a deck extension, so he could watch the hull cut through the water. He wanted to see the Mary Celeste's power firsthand, but as the captain, his wife, his young daughter, and several crew members stood on that makeshift wooden ledge to watch a swimming race between two sailors, the unthinkable happened. The wood groaned. The rusted nails snapped. In a split second, the entire platform collapsed. 10 people were plunged into the icy, deep waters of the Atlantic. And as they struggled in the waves, the Mary Celeste, still under full sail and with its rudder locked, simply kept moving. It sailed away from them, leaving its masters to drown in its wake. Fosdyk's account describes a nightmare that no human should ever endure. He claimed he was the only one who managed to grab onto a piece of the floating debris. As he drifted, he watched in horror as the Mary Celeste became a small dot on the horizon. But they weren't alone in the water. The blood from the fall and the splashing had attracted the silent predators of the deep. He described the screams of the crew as the sharks arrived. One by one, his friends were pulled under. He watched the captain's wife try to hold her daughter above the waves until the strength left her arms. Fosdyk claimed he drifted for days on that piece of wood, driven half mad by the sun and the sight of fins circling him until he was eventually washed ashore on the coast of Africa. But is this story true? Historians point out massive holes in his logic. There was no evidence of a broken platform on the ship's hull. There was no mention of Fosdyk in any official documents. Many believe his story was a work of fiction, a deathbed confession designed to give his family something to sell to the newspapers. Yet his description of the ship's interior and the captain's habits was frighteningly accurate. If he wasn't there, how did he know the exact position of the furniture in the cabin? How did he know about the captain's private fears? If Fosdyk was a liar, he was a brilliant one. But if he was telling the truth, it means the Mary Celeste didn't just lose its crew to a mystery. It abandoned them. It became a sentient, sailing coffin that watched its owners die and then continued its journey as if nothing had happened. This brings us back to the ship itself. Was there something wrong with the Mary Celeste from the day she was built? But wait, the mystery doesn't end with Abel Fosdyk's haunting confession. In the next chapter, we are going to explore a theory that has been kept under wraps for decades. Was there a cursed artifact from the Superstition Mountains hidden in the ship's hold? And what did modern forensic scientists find when they recreated the Mary Celeste's final hours using 2026 technology? The answer will change everything you thought you knew about this ghost ship. You do not want to miss Part 4 and the grand finale in Part 5. Subscribe now and hit that bell because the darkest secrets are about to be revealed. See you in the next one.